Hello, everybody. Welcome to kind of a surprise, unscheduled episode of American Soccer Quick Kicks. I'm your host, David Wright. We are coming at you on Monday night. This is the week leading up to MLS Cup. We're having Vancouver traveling on the longest possible road trip there is in this league, from Vancouver, British Columbia, all the way down to Miami to face Leo Messi's team in MLS Cup. It's coming up on Saturday. What I wanted to do is come on here and just kind of give you a little background on Vancouver. Who are the Vancouver Whitecaps? They actually have a pretty long history. If you look at the big picture, the Vancouver Whitecaps have a history that actually goes back over 50 years. I want to spend some time just kind of talking about who they are and where they came from. So the Vancouver Whitecaps was actually the name of the original Vancouver club that joined the old NASL. That's the North American Soccer League. They joined in 1974, and this was the league that had its heyday in the 70s. It existed from 1966 to 1984. It reached its peak in the 70s. This is when we had Pele playing for New York Cosmos, and that was kind of the poster child, the face of the entire league. And you had Vancouver Whitecaps join in 1974. They would stay with the league all the way until 1984. They had their biggest success in 1979, where they would face Pele's Cosmos in the semifinals, beat them, and then earn their spot in the championship final, which NASL dubbed Soccer Bowl. So you had the Whitecaps take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the 1979 Soccer Bowl, and guess what? They won. Congratulations to Vancouver for winning the league in 1979. So this was obviously fantastic, and this was they were drawing the crowds, and the city was getting excited. It was a great time to be a soccer fan in Vancouver. What would shortly happen, though, is they would play until the league ran out in 1984. And a lot of them just kind of stayed busy with the Canadian national team to get ready for the 1986 World Cup. Then they started a new professional club. I believe it was second division, but they were not allowed to use the name Whitecaps. So they had to go with 86ers. This was 1986. Vancouver, I think, was founded in 1886 and all this kind of stuff. So they just call themselves the Vancouver 86ers. They kind of claimed unofficially the history of the Whitecaps, but they weren't allowed to use the name. I guess it wasn't for sale or whatever, but they stayed active. Like they never went defunct. They knocked around a couple of different leagues from 1986 all the way till 2000. They were able to buy the name and once again called themselves the Whitecaps. This was playing in second division. It started out in A-League. I think it went to USL. Then in 2011, they got a new ownership group, including NBA MVP and Hall of Famer Steve Nash, who's Canadian and a soccer fan, joined the ownership group in 2011. Or I should say, when they became an MLS club. That's when he was on board as an owner, and they began play in the league in 2011. And so so they've been in constant operation since 1986, but they also claim the history of the Whitecaps from the 70s. They've had a middling success in the league, generally speaking. They have yet to win MLS Cup. They have yet to win Supporter Shield. They have had more success with the Canadian Domestic Cup, called the Canadian Championship. They won their first one in 2015. And they've now won 4 in a row: 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. They've been able to lift that cup the last 4 years. And so, in the MLS era, it has always been one of the 3 Canadian MLS teams. And right now, Montreal and Toronto are kind of down. So Vancouver doesn't really have a lot of competition right now for that domestic cup, but that is the only trophy they've been able to win so far. By virtue of winning that, though, they've been able to compete in Concacaf, and their best showing in Concacaf was this year, 2025. They beat Miami in the semifinal. if you watched my last video, I was blanking on one more point I wanted to make about Vancouver versus Miami. That was it. That actually played earlier this year in June, before Thomas Mueller was a part of the Vancouver club. They played each other in a high-stakes game, something Miami prioritized and they were going after. Vancouver beat them fairly easily, and would go on to play Cruz Azul in the final and fall short. But credit to Vancouver, this is like the only time we've seen a club that was doing well in CONCACAF, which is concurrent with the regular season, and also playing at a high level in the regular season. Because of squad rotation and not a lot of depth in MLS, you kind of have to choose which competition you're going to prioritize when you find yourself playing more than one. And they did both with success. And this at a time early in the season when they were doing so well in the league. So anyway, that is the Vancouver history that goes all the way back to 1974. Steve Nash has been in the ownership group since 2011, and Vancouver has had a constantly operating professional club since 1986. And there's really only about a 2-year interruption there. And other than those 2 years, between when the NASL folded in 84 to when they started again in 86, that was the only 2-year gap that they've ever had. I want to give you real quick some key players to look for in the final. So first of all, I want to, let me see who I've got here I can call up. This is the first guy I want to go with. Okay. Let me sort out all my, here we go. So this is Andres Cubas. He's going to be a key player for them in the final because he's a defensive midfielder. He is the one most likely to play, I should say, to mark Lionel Messi. And he's had an excellent postseason so far. Also, we got to pay attention to Brian White. He's our striker up top, and he's not been able to play the whole season. But obviously, having him in is a huge boost and helps round them out and put them in full form. Tristan Blackman is back. He's MLS Defender of the Year, and he missed the game against San Diego to a red card suspension. He's going to be back in the lineup. And Sebastian Berhalter, man, I am fully on the Sebastian Berhalter train now. He has won me over, and I am really, really rooting for this guy. And I want to see him playing. I want to see him with a spot on the U.S. World Cup roster. We'll see how that goes. Then, of course, we've got Thomas Mueller, who I talked about in yesterday's video. Bayern legend, 2008 to 2025, multiple Champions Leagues, and also multiple World Cup appearances for Germany, including winning it in 2014. He came in the summer transfer window, and he absolutely he handpicked Vancouver. He said, that is the club I want to play for. Not a big flashy club in the league, not the most glamorous one on offer, but it's where he wanted to be. I think what it is he's like big into horses, and he loved the countryside and the open spaces of Vancouver, British Columbia, and that's where he wanted to go. And he has come in, and he has been more bought in and more excited and more enthusiastic about his new MLS club than I think any other big name European star has ever been. And that's saying a lot because some of them have come in with great attitudes. And I'm thinking about Son Heung-min when I say that. But Mueller has just been a lot of fun, big cheerleader for the team. And he's brought just a lot of belief. And if you saw Vancouver play against LAFC, if you saw that gutty performance, you know that there's going to be a real game Saturday. This may be the toughest opponent from the West that Miami could have ended up with, because they've held their own against Miami just fine. Like I said, they handled them well in CONCACAF without Mueller, being a game that Miami prioritized highly. And so they were really going for it, and they couldn't keep up with them. So now the travel is going to be a factor, right? They're all the way from Vancouver to Miami. That's brutal. It's over 3,400 miles. Miami's going to be playing at home, and Miami looks great. And they look unlocked and leveled up. You know, I talked about that defensive balance that they now have. I'm going to talk about Inter Miami, give you a little bit of their club history later this week. Hopefully it'll be tomorrow. But I just want to give you a little background, a little context for Vancouver Whitecaps playing in their first MLS Cup. And we will see if they can come away victorious. That is going to be Saturday, 2:30 Eastern. You can see it on Apple TV, but you can also see it on Fox on regular cable. That's going to do it for tonight. I will see you soon talking about Inter Miami. Watch some soccer with me. I'll talk to you next time.